All right, the topic of what happened on October 7th in Israel has been one I've talked about quite a bit. I've tried to educate myself as much as I can. I am a strong defender of Israel. I believe Israel not only has a right to exist, they have an absolute right and a responsibility to protect themselves from future attacks. What happened on October 7th was one of the most disgusting, despicable things I have ever seen, and I think the world has seen. It was the largest attack against Jews since the Holocaust. And the Israelis have a right to stop any future attacks from happening by weeding out organizations like Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad out of Gaza, Hezbollah to the north, and other organizations and other terrorist groups that would do them harm. So we continue to see, I just think it's a mischaracterization of what's happening, and I'll get to why in a moment. But I want you to hear Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer leads the United States Senate right now. It's also, I think, important to designate Chuck Schumer is also Jewish. And so this boggles my mind even more. But I want you to hear some words. This is not Citizen Chuck Schumer speaking. This is Senator Chuck Schumer speaking.
He has been too willing to tolerate the civilian toll in Gaza, which is pushing support for Israel worldwide to historic lows. Israel cannot survive if it becomes a pariah.
So what is interesting about this is the coverage. On October 7th, let's recap what happened on October 7th of last year for a moment. Hamas entered Israel with the intent of murdering as many Jews as they could, men, women, and children, as many Jews as they could, and pushing from Gaza to the West Bank. That was their goal. Their goal was to murder as many Israelis as they could on their way to the West Bank. They were also hoping that the cells of uprisers and terrorists in the West Bank would rise up and they would push the Israelis off the land and murder as many Jews as they could. That was their goal. Now, they accomplished a slaughter of the Jewish people. And the video that I saw, the 47-minute video I saw, was less than 10% of the people that were murdered that day. And they didn't show some of the horrific things that were done with sexual assaults and other things. But there's hundreds of hours of videos that are out there because the terrorists videotaped themselves doing this and the great joy they took in doing it. And they put them all over social media and they sent them to their family members as trophies of an accomplishment in murdering as many Jews as they could. As a matter of fact, in the middle of the video that I saw, there was a phone call where a terrorist, one of the Hamas terrorists, had murdered multiple Jewish people and used the cell phone of one of the victims to call his parents in Gaza to tell them that you should be very proud of your son. I've murdered more than 10 Jews with my own hands. Dad was proud. Mom was proud. But the goal of Hamas was to murder as many Israelis as they could that day. There was going to be no end. There was no such thing as an innocent civilian. There was no such thing as a civilian casualty. They were murdering everyone on October 7th. And yet, what do we see? We see what's happening in Gaza, and we're blaming Israel for it. Israel has proposed a ceasefire on a number of occasions, and the response that they have gotten from Hamas has been ridiculous. They want a 10-to-1 hostage release. 10-to-1. They took women and children and the elderly hostage, and they want 10 of their prisoners to every one they release. They are setting this up because the worldwide media, for some reason, is turning this against Israel. They understand that they are winning a propaganda war. Why wouldn't they continue doing what they're doing? So Schumer goes on. This is what Schumer wants.
At this critical juncture, I believe a new election is the only way to allow for a healthy and open decision-making process about the future of Israel.
Now, here is the United States government. You go back to 2016. Go look at the election of 2016, where Hillary Clinton still said the Russians influenced our election and that foreign nations have no business influencing our elections. We're talking about banning TikTok in this country because the possibility of the Chinese influencing American elections. And you've got the guy that runs the United States Senate telling the United States Senate, the number one ally of Israel in the world, stands before the United States Senate and says we should get rid of Benjamin Netanyahu. That's not election interference. That's not somebody influencing and interfering in elections. Do you have any idea what kind of propaganda that's now going to create around the world? You don't think that Hamas and Hezbollah and PIJ and all the Iranians, you don't think that they're going to show this to everyone? You don't think they're blasting this all over Israel, saying you're about to lose U.S. support? You're going to lose this war? Mitch McConnell, the senior, the caucus leader for the Republicans, said this.
This is unprecedented. We should not treat fellow democracies this way at all.
This is not for the U.S. to say.
It is grotesque and hypocritical for Americans who hyperventilate about foreign interference in our own democracy to call for the removal of a democratically elected leader of Israel.
The Speaker of the House, Johnson, said this.
We want to speak very clearly and concisely to say that this is not only highly inappropriate, it's just plain wrong.
So it is more than just wrong. He said this is not the way we show support. He goes on to talk about Schumer.
It's just plain wrong for an American leader to play such a divisive role in Israeli politics while our closest ally in the region is in an existential battle for its very survival.
And here's what President Biden said about Schumer's comments.
Senator Schumer contacted my staff, my senior staff. He was going to make that speech, and I'm not going to elaborate on the speech. He made a good speech, and I think he expressed a serious concern shared not only by him but by many Americans.
So the frustration I feel is this. The cost of war is too expensive when one innocent person dies. We all believe that in our hearts. It is an unintended consequence of war. You go and look at U.S. casualties and civilian casualties in the U.S. wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. You look at what the Allied forces have done. You go back as far as World War II and you look what's happened. This propaganda war against Israel and blaming them, the deaths of people in Gaza fall squarely on the shoulders of Hamas. Hamas has done nothing but spend the money that the world has given them that is supposed to make a better life for the people of Gaza. They have done nothing but spend money on building tunnels and bombs inside those tunnels to wage war against Israel. That's all they've ever done. That's all they've ever done. Hoarding billions of dollars. The leaders of Hamas are billionaires while the people of Gaza are starving. I'll go one step further. The people of Gaza should be refugees in other Arab nations, shouldn't they? Why isn't Egypt to the south opening the gates to a refugee camp in Egypt? They still refuse to take refugees. That's why innocent civilians are trapped in Gaza. They don't want the refugees. Neither do the other Arab nations. They don't want the refugees from Gaza. The idea that this is Israel's fault is horrifying to hear. Israel has a right and a responsibility to defend themselves. If today, Hamas put down their weapons, there would be peace. They refuse to put down their weapons, and we're watching this jaded view of what's happening. I think it's horrifying. I think it's absolutely horrifying.
Thanks for watching the Mike Broomhead Show. Tap to watch the first season of Amazing Arizonans, a KTAR News podcast. You can also click the button in the middle to subscribe.